Way of the Spiritual Path. This is our guest, Tonya Harvey, and my name is Ursula Lentini. The Way. Why do we call it the Way? Because there is laws and principles that are governing everything, and we call that the Way. So the spiritual path has its own modality, its own ways, its own quirky, not understandable ways that happen along the path. So when we start understanding the way of things, we can start collaborating that and get either in the way or out of the way. That's right. And today's topic is selling. So no one likes really selling because we feel like cheesy, car salesman,
manipulation.
Right. We don't like that.
No.
So Tonya Harvey does sales with integrity, sales based on connection, and today we're talking about sales as a form of service. So being honest and forthright with what we're presenting and without the sleazy stuff.
Absolutely. That's never something somebody responds well to at all.
No. And we don't like being the sleazy person. So we don't have to sell that way. Today's principle is things are not always as they seem.
No, they're not.
That goes way back from Plato. So we've been trying to fool ourselves since way back when.
Yep.
And until things are not always as they seem because we have suspicion. So whenever someone's selling us something, we're always like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, there's a disconnect, and you start to feel somebody back up.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, don't sell me this.
Right.
I'm not interested.
And then when we're trying to sell something, we put on the sleazy outfit, like the greased hair. We're like, hey, do you want to buy my thing?
Right. And that comes from a lot of reasons. The number one is that a lot of people are very passionate about their products and services, right?
Yes.
And in that overzealous mode, they overstep and don't establish some of the principles we'll talk about today first, so that the person that they're talking to about their products and services are more receptive rather than disconnecting and sort of backing away and saying, not interested.
Interesting. So my products and services are, I do pranic healing, I do subconscious work. The subconscious work is really fascinating because we operate within our conscious all day long, but 90% of our behavior and reactions to life events are from the subconscious. So if we can't figure out why we're doing something, the answer is in our subconscious. Yep. So that's the work I provide. And Tonya was raised an Army brat. You moved around a lot.
I did, yes. I lived in a lot of different states.
You also joined the Army for 6 years.
Yeah, did serve to help better the world that way.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not I wouldn't read you as like, oh, she's an Army kid or Army person at all.
Well, so that's interesting because what you're actually seeing is the part of me that has moved away from that pre-structured way, that because there's a certain mechanics to it, because it's mission first and personal agenda second. So our personality can't get in the way. So there's a molding process that goes on.
There's a way to the military.
There's a way to the military, absolutely.
And back to sales, you worked for Apple and learned how it is correct and proper for men to sell. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't really feel comfortable to us women when we're selling.
No.
So you specialize in sales for women, speaking from our authentic integrity place and being able to connect with their customers and clients.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's a lot of things that are intertwined in that whole process. And so for women, it's a little bit of a spiritual inner journey to reclaim personal value. Particularly if you have a business that you're not handed a price list for, you have to determine the value of your products and services, which come in a way of creation through you.
Nice.
And in that, you've got to declare value for that.
Well, and if you don't have self-value, self-esteem,
absolutely,
I'll give you my services
I'll
for
give it
free.
Away. Hey, listen, we can do this all day for free.
Free.
Oh, but they're still calling me bill collectors. You know, it's that kind of thing.
Right.
And so it's interesting. So there's an economic component to this. There's a spiritual component to selling, and there's a communication component. And so they all intertwine.
So what are the three components that you want to teach us today?
Okay, so the interesting thing is you talked about the male-dominated industries that I came out of. These components were very much absent from that because selling was seen as a way of persuading in a strong manner, in a very masculine manner, somebody to take an action. So if I can just get you to sign on the dotted line, I have a sale. And I knew there was much more to that whole process. And so the tough part for me was trying to determine what else was involved. I had no external teachers for this, and so I had to go inward,
Inside.
to find the greater truth of the whole thing. And so the three components that I became very familiar with that changed my whole sales approach, which of course did a number of things. I felt more authentic. I felt more comfortable with who I was. I didn't feel like I had to do it their way, the male way. And once these components and the three underlying components that support that were revealed to me, my whole world as a salesperson changed. So the three components are safety, they are honesty, and they're compromise. Okay, so let's break that down.
Yeah, so safety. I mean, in sales, I want to know that I trust you.
Right.
So
Which is the underlying principle of safety.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so why is it important for us to feel safe in a sales process? Here's why it's important. Because in the sales process, it's a genuine, authentic conversation that is a point of connection to find out what is important to your prospect or the person that's interested in your product and service.
Okay.
And until we feel a certain level of safety, even though it may be unconscious, as you say, it's still running in the background. And so they're not actually going to say to you, you know what, I need to feel safe with you before I tell you all my needs here. That's not ever going to be stated out loud.
Okay.
What you just need to know is that it's present in the conversation. If you know anything about Maslow's law of hierarchy, on the lowest end, we have to make sure that we're safe first before we can move up the scale of meeting certain needs that he laid out.
That's true. So even though I have food, shelter, and the things that I need, I still need a sense of safety when you're trying to give me something or provide me something, and I don't know you. I don't know where you're coming from.
Right.
I don't know what your agenda is. Are
Exactly.
you more interested in the money in my purse, or are you more interested in what I need?
Right.
Okay.
And are you a means to an end for me? Which would be, if I can just get your money, then I meet, in the corporate world, I meet my quota, or I have money in my bank account. So that's where it gets sleazy feeling. Like nobody wants to feel like they're a means to someone else's end.
Okay.
We want to feel connection. We want to feel someone is genuinely interested in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so that's the point of connection.
Okay.
And you made a beautiful point about trust a moment ago, and that's the underlying principle. Now, here's an interesting thing about trust. If I'm talking to you about a product and service that I'm selling, if I don't trust myself to know where I'm going to go in the conversation, or if I don't trust myself that I'll have the answer, which is very common, what happens if they ask me a question and I don't have any idea what the answer is, can come up. And if I don't trust myself to just be in the moment and allow for it, or even say to them, you know what, I don't know, but I'll be happy to find that out. Which will take us to our second point in a minute. It's really important that the safety is met with trust, and they're really kind of they're sort of on a seesaw. They sort of balance each other out.
Okay.
And there's a direct connect between the two that's extremely important.
So if I feel safe with you selling me whatever you're selling me, then I also if I trust what you feel.
That I have a genuine interest in learning and connecting about you, then you're going to feel safe.
Okay.
And when you feel safe, you're going to be more, and we're going to go to the second principle now, honest with me about what your needs are.
There you go.
Right? And then as a person who is genuinely connecting with you, to see if I actually have a solution to a wake up in the morning problem, I call it. It's the thing that when you put your feet on the ground, it's running, and it's a problem that you think day in and day out about.
Okay.
And really, that's what you want to, as somebody in business, we want to solve the wake up in the morning problem.
Okay.
If we can.
Right.
Okay, so where people overstep is they assume in their excitement that I have the perfect solution for you. It worked for me. I've had these results, and I know you can have them. Really? I want to ask that person, hold on. Are you 100% certain that you have a solution? Nobody can be 100% certain about anything.
Right.
So that's why the conversation has to reveal, from the prospect's point of view, needs to reveal what their needs are.
So that's where the honesty comes in.
Exactly.
So if you're selling me something and that's not really what I'm looking for, but I can be honest with you and say, this is what I'm looking for. And you say, oh, well, I have something that can provide for that need.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's absolutely how authentic selling runs. Instead, what happens is you never get to that point. You shut down and get quiet. And then the person gets confused, and then there's a disconnect. And if you're not skilled, if you don't know skill sets in selling, you shut down as a salesperson, because there's this shutdown, there's a feeling of disconnect, which we all respond to with a sense of curiosity or fear. And if it's curious, then we begin to ask questions.
Okay, which is good because you want the person to kind of reveal what their needs are so you can see if you can provide them or not.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if fear is present, everything shuts down, the conversation stops.
You can look out the window.
Right.
I'm done with this conversation.
Like,
how do I get out of this conversation now? Oh, I have to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Goodbye.
Right. So that gets, it gets the person looking at their clock. They've got to go to the bathroom. They give you false answers.
Just
to push you back. Yeah. So vulnerability is an underlying principle for honesty.
Okay.
So I have to be willing to be transparent with the person that I'm talking to as a salesperson. And sometimes we get overzealous, as I pointed out. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a gentleman who I was selling to that was kind of coordinating the sales in a small company, and he was in the HR department. So he's very supporting kind of individual, because he's not. That's the function of HR. They sort of are that
human
resourcing, connecting part of a business. And so I got overzealous and I overstepped and went around him and his boss to somebody else and tried to get an answer that really needed to come from him, and broke trust.
Oh.
Okay? Now the guy doesn't feel safe. I've broken trust, and he's may or may not be honest with me, depending on how vulnerable I am about my mistake.
Okay.
So I literally had to pick up the phone. I decided to do it by phone, not by email, because it's so much more personal. And I said, you know what? When I did XYZ, I stepped right on the line of unprofessional, and I apologize. And then he relaxed. He opened up. Then he told me how I could help correct the problem within the company. So I had an advocate now.
Okay.
And, the outcome wasn't that I got the sale, but the outcome was that I was given the opportunity to be vulnerable in the process and admit that I had made a mistake.
Because you were honest with him.
Yes.
So open the doors back up.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you see how vulnerability and honesty and safety now and trust all interconnect and intertwine. So that brings us to the third component, is compromising. Okay. So compromise is kind of an interesting concept that that we're taught. Compromising means you give up something.
Right. You lose, the other person loses. It's a lose-lose.
It's a lose-lose, or even worse, a lose-win situation. Okay. I've lost, you've won, and we really don't like that.
Okay.
So compromise needs to be supported by the concept of surrender.
People don't like surrendering.
Even more than compromise. Even more than compromise. It becomes a more difficult situation. So in selling, when you're surrendering to the fact that you're having a conversation with an individual who has their own unique ways of seeing the world and perceptions and realities.
Their own way.
And I can't control what's going to come out of their mouth. And so in a sales conversation, it's like a dance. I'm sort of wanting to work with the individual to kind of move them down toward a decision. I want to support them in a decision-making process for my product or service.
And it could be no.
Absolutely.
The discovery could be, no, this isn't a good fit.
Exactly.
But us professional women or professional people have resources. Mm-hmm. So they're like, okay, you know what? This isn't the right thing, but who keeps coming to mind is somebody else. Let me direct you in that now that I have a better understanding of your needs. So in service, we're serving that person by meeting their needs if we can have an authentic conversation with them.
Absolutely.
And there's no compromise. The compromise is just getting to a decision-making process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's it.
Do you have a story about that?
I do. I had an interesting situation where I was discussing this with a young 20-something-year-old female who really wanted to engage in some of my services, and was struggling in her mind to come up with the money. So this is an interesting point where I had to kind of take off my salesman hat, and I had to put on my hat of compassion, and I had to give her space and surrender to the fact that she may say no to me, and that wouldn't be a personal rejection on my point. Women have a hard time with no, because it's internalized, and it becomes, oh, they reject me. Particularly if your product and service is something that's so near and dear and personal, then it becomes more of a internal conflict with no, because it can get translated so easily into the rejecting me.
So when we put our heart and soul into our product and somebody says, no, I don't want that product, we take it personally.
Yeah, we take it as, I don't want you.
Right.
Well, no, really it could just be Christy's situation, which was she literally was trying to figure out how to come up with the money. And so I surrendered to this, I don't know where she's going to go right now. And it was critical for me to compromise and step forward and say, well, would you like us to look at this together and see if we can brainstorm on some ideas about how you can do this? And she relaxed, and I watched her come up with her own solution. She surrendered away from her fear, which was, I really want this, but I'm not sure how I'm going to achieve it. And when she let go of that fear, she got creative.
Wait, let's back up and feel our way through that.
Okay.
All right. So when you're telling me, she was like, I'm in fear. I don't know how to come up with the money. I like the product or service that you're providing, but the money thing's making me crazy.
Exactly.
So the answer is no right now.
Exactly.
So she's in fear.
Right.
Then you provided space, support.
Yes.
Kind of vulnerability on your part.
It was.
Like, hey, I'm not going to push for the sale, but let me sit here with you and go through this exploration
Exactly.
of a possibility to help you create your solution, so there's can be a potential solution here. So when you create the space, she was able to open up, and her creativity could come in.
Exactly.
So when we drop the fear, other things can come in.
Right. And that's vulnerable for her. Because she doesn't know what's about to happen herself. It's that unknown principle. I don't know where she's going in this conversation. She doesn't even know where she's going. So we're both vulnerable, and we're both waiting for the honesty to emerge. And we've both surrendered to the fact that we just don't know, but something's about to happen.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's nice, because now that reads in relationship. It reads in the way females can show up for other females, the way a man sometimes can, especially in the sales process, because he's whatever. So, there's more of a heart-to-heart connection.
Yeah.
That's really nice. It's sweet. So that kind of brings us down to the connection of it all. And that's our third point that we wanted to cultivate. So tell me about connection in the sales process.
Well, I think through the process that I've been talking here is really about the concepts of being respectful, being genuine. And these are all outcomes of some of the concepts, the components that we've talked about. And I think one of the most important things that really stitches all of this together is the Buddhist principle of non-attachment. It's about just allowing what is to be rather than trying to drive to an end that may or may not be the actual true destination. Now, with that said, I do have to say this. There is a bit of drive in the sales process, because ultimately what you're attempting to do is gain agreement on something.
Okay.
Right? Otherwise, it's just a fun conversation.
And when you have the mortgage,
right,
the bills, the car, children, there's bills to pay. And the reason why you're selling these things is to help pay the bills, or one of the reasons.
One, absolutely.
But that's definitely there.
Yes, absolutely. And so there is an end on this. There is a destination. It's just being non-attached on the way to the destination.
Nice. Nice. Okay.
Yep.
So to recap, we have the safety and trust, honesty, and that vulnerability.
Exactly.
To be honest, but you have to have the safety in order to be vulnerable.
Exactly.
Oh, they all tie into each other.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then the third one was compromise, and the underlying principle was
surrender.
Surrender.
Otherwise, you're trying to control the outcome and get one up on the other, and it's a win-lose situation.
Don't like that.
No, most of us don't.
Okay, so compromise and surrender, with the end of the story being about the connection.
Yes,
that's our third.
All
point.
of these 6 things that we've talked about, the components and the underlying principles, create connection.
They do. That's awesome. And then back to the point of the show, the principle of the show, that things are not always as they seem.
No.
Unless there's honesty and integrity.
Exactly.
And then it's an open book.
Right. So selling is all about relationship. That's all. I mean, it's a conversation with another person. And it does involve skill set, it involves timing, and it involves intuition.
You've been awesome today. Thank you. Do you have something that you can offer the viewers or the listeners?
I do. There is on my website, there is a free report called How to Communicate from a Position of Power. If you would like to download that, it's a brief report that talks up to these 6 concepts that we discussed today. And you can go to www.connect2revenue.com and download that.
Thank you. So that's our segment for today. And the treatment that we're going to say right now is that we know one power, one connection, one source. And when we're affirming and knowing things for ourselves, we're calling in to be. So I want to create a great show around sales. Oh, look, here's Tonya. So when we want to create and bring things in, when we do so through integrity, through using the laws and principles, using the way of the spiritual path, trust, connection, these types of things are along the way, we can manifest and create that which we want to either sell or receive. So feeling a lot of gratitude today. Thank you very much, Tonya Harvey. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us on the way of the spiritual path, the Lighter Side Network. Please join us again. Thank you.